Hi guys, thanks for watching this video for my GoFundMe campaign. I need your help. I need my audience's help. I need donations right now. I need help from my spiritual community at large, okay? I never call on anyone. I'm calling on you now because I need to do three things. I need to get back to the US. I've got to refilm for 2 documentaries, okay? And it's the cost for getting myself and my producer in a car to travel across America to meet new witnesses and to get the new testimony that we need. So basically, new evidence came to light on the Richard Baldwin documentary that completely shifts the whole documentary. I'm going to go over and vlog the whole thing. I'm going to be sharing my journey with you, okay? So it's no longer called Richard Baldwin, The Murder in Camelot. It's going to be called something else, okay? And this new testimony is going to blow the whole case out the water, all right? So I need help in funding that. I also need a bit of help on my journey across America in refilming some of the scenes that I filmed for the Channeling documentary. So both the Richard Baldwin documentary and the Channeling documentary, or the docu-series that they're going to be, are going to be free on my network by the look of it, okay? And finally, I want to launch the International Spiritual News Network. This was going to be the network that's going to not only take the documentaries that I'm doing now and in the future, which is looking at problems within our community, looking at all sorts of mainstream issues as well. But most importantly, the ISNN will be looking at the mainstream news from a spiritual perspective. Imagine listening to the news and then hearing the deeper karmic reasons as to why the things are happening the way they are. That's the whole point of the ISNN. So just go to www.theisnn.com and donate, please. Please help me raise 10,000 UK pounds to launch the ISNN, to travel across the US to complete these 2 documentaries, which will be the first docu-series going out on the ISNN. Okay, this is the announcement of the launch of the ISNN. So whatever you can donate, if you can just share this video, that would be amazing. And just thank you so much for your support. Hi guys, and welcome to another edition of The Kevin Moore Show. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Dean Sluyter. Now Dean has taught meditation throughout the United States since 1970. He is the author of several books and audio programs, including Cinema Nirvana, The Zen Commandments, and Natural Meditation, a guide to effortless meditative practice. Now, he is known for conveying authentic teachings in the forms that are practical, accessible, label-free, and fun. Now, Dean has led retreats and workshops, and he blogs for the Huffington Post and has been featured in numerous publications. Dean Sluyter, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Kevin. It's great to be here.
Beautiful to have you on, brother. Beautiful to have you on. Now, let's get straight into it. We're interviewing you about your latest book, Fearless. And that's, how long has that book been out for now?
It's been out just about a year.
Right, okay. And you know, I came across it just recently, thankfully, and this is going to be a beautiful interview. Let's get straight to the core of this. What's the main message of the book? Why did you write it, and what's the main message?
The main message is, if I can point out that the title is not fearless, it's fearless, 2 words. We don't have to be, and that word fearless has become very popular. You see it used in a lot of advertising and on t-shirts these days. I haven't met anyone who's fearless. I've met the Dalai Lama, and he jokes about being scared of worms. But fortunately, we don't have to be. We can, you know, our fears, and also, I mentioned in the subtitle of the book, fear, anxiety, anger, addiction. Those things are all, they're kind of like big scary, they seem like big scary monsters looming above our head. And if we look a little more closely, we see they're sort of like, here in the States, we have something called the Macy's Day Parade on Thanksgiving with the big floats of the cartoon characters and so forth. And they're huge, but if you take a little pin and stick a little hole in it, it starts to deflate. And after a while, it's still there, but it becomes a little, flaccid thing bumping around your ankles. So the message is that those things, the addictive cravings, the rages that we get caught in, the anxieties, I especially hear so much about anxiety these days, particularly from young people, that they don't have to be overwhelming, that there are time-tested tricks that you can use to deflate them.
So, what's your story then? What got you into writing a book like this as well?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been teaching meditation for most of my life, in corporate boardrooms, maximum security prisons, pretty much everywhere in between. And the main thing that I try to show people about meditation is that it's not this arduous task that they think it is. They think it's like, rolling a boulder up a mountain. And in fact, it doesn't have to be that. What I call natural meditation is really more like just instead of pushing, just allowing yourself to be pulled, allowing gravity to take over. So I've been teaching that for years, and it's great, been getting people to, sit down for 10, 15 minutes a day and let this happen. But also, what in recent years I've started to notice is that people, in addition to that, and I do teach that in the book Fear Less, the natural meditation, but in addition, people need things that they can do right there on the spot. So for instance, when you are in the middle of traffic and, the jerk in the white Beamer cuts you off and you're boiling with rage and you're about to do something that might be very, very foolish, you need something that you can use on the spot. So one of the most effective on-the-spot techniques that I teach in the book, and actually this one's featured on the Oprah website because it's a chapter 2 pages long. I like making things bite-sized. The chapter is called Breathe Through Your Feet. And we can actually do this. Everyone watching or listening to this can do this right now. Very simple. Don't have to close your eyes. You don't have to try to control your thoughts. Just your next breath. As you start to breathe in, just kind of feel or imagine that you're breathing in through the soles of your feet. And then as you breathe out, breathing out through the soles of the feet. Once more, breathing in through the soles of the feet. Breathing out through the soles of the feet. One more. Through the soles of the feet. Breathing out through the soles of the feet. And done. How you feeling, Kevin?
Good, very good, thank you.
Yeah.
I want to ask you then, how often, well, no, how long do you meditate for per day as well?
I personally, you know what? One of the smartest things I ever did, and it took me years to get smart enough to do this, was I threw the timepiece out of my meditation space. I don't time it. People ask me, it's so funny that you asked that right near the top here, because people ask, how long should I meditate? Or people come up to me in my workshops and they say, okay, I've been meditating twice, 20 minutes a day, and I'm pushing for 25. And I go, oh, right, you're pushing. See, that's turning it into a task. So I'll turn the question around to you. When you put on your headphones and listen to your favorite tunes, how long do you do that for?
As long as I deem it joyful to do it.
Yeah, that's it. That's the attitude.
Practical timing as well, of course. There's other things.
And there's practical time. Sometimes you set a little alarm because you've got to get off to work or school. But when you're listening to your favorite tunes, when you're dancing with your honey, when you're walking on the beach, you don't know how long it is. You forget about the time because you are, that's such a great word, you are in joy. You're not in time. And joy takes you outside of time. So you treat meditation the same. We just, what the hell? I have no idea what I'm doing, how long I'm doing it. I'm just letting nature take over.
So on your journey right now in your life, what have you worked out? What's it all about?
What's it all about? What's life all about?
Well,
The
yeah,
whole thing.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay, good. Let's swing for the fences here. Good, I like
Why are
that.
we here?
Yeah, why we are here to see when we ask why are we here, what is the meaning of life, let's say. We're right away looking for something outside of life, like the meaning of a sign, like the sign that says exit, or how do you say it in Britain, way out, right? Right. The meaning of that sign is it's pointing to something outside of itself, that gate over there. Okay. So when we say, oh, what's the meaning of life? We're looking for it to point to something outside of itself. Now, right away, that's making life inadequate. It's making life merely the pointer. Okay. What if we just sink into existence itself, life itself? Now, what all the great sages have taught, whether it's the Buddha or Shankaracharya or Jesus or Socrates, all in somewhat different language, but pretty much the same teaching, is that if we just sink into existence itself, beingness itself, we find out that, on the surface, it's kind of like an ocean. On the surface, it's choppy, there's waves. This wave is bigger, this one's smaller. We tend to identify, I think I'm this wave and you're that wave, and waves have a habit of sloshing into each other. Oh, excuse me. Wait, you're in my lane. And then eventually every wave crashes against the shore and dies, and we're all terrified of that, so we try to look the other way. That's the model of life as most people live it and try to deny it and try to numb themselves to it with various, drinks and drugs and distractions and so forth. What the sages have all taught is that if you sink down into that ocean a couple of feet, you discover, oh, I'm not this little puny, isolated, doomed wave. I'm the ocean. There's no disconnect. There's no boundary between the waves and the ocean. And I've been looking for peace of mind. I've been looking for inner silence. The ocean is silent right now. The depths of that water is always silent. That's why meditation can be natural instead of a task. Instead of trying to silence the mind, we just allow our natural gravity toward enjoyment to pull us into the depths of the silent water. And at first, you start getting little glimpses of that in your meditation, sometimes really big, dramatic glimpses. And then more and more, and this is the key thing, more and more as you come out of your meditation, or as you come out of even doing these little on-the-spot techniques like breathing through your feet, they're all putting you in touch with that, you could say, that oceanic level of being, the core of our being. So more and more as you come out of doing those methods, it sticks with you. As you're walking around, dealing with the waves, dealing with traffic, dealing with work and relationships and all that, you're doing it from that vast oceanic depth of your being. And then when people ask you, what's it all about? What's the meaning of life? You just smile. It's not a question anymore. It's just, oh yeah, it's this. It's an experience.
So your journey then, I'm guessing, my journey's kind of been, been into all sorts of alternative subjects in a sense, trying to find the meaning of life through, whether it's connecting with spirit guides if they exist, whether it's through, channeled texts, or whether it's through myself, trying to connect to that greater part of me that seems to have been forever. It's not just this experience right now. What's your sort of journey been then to get to where you are, depending where you are though?
Well, for me, it started in childhood. I had a couple of kind of just spontaneous, completely unsought, unbidden experiences that were just opening experiences, awakening glimpses. The most fun one actually was when I was I think 12 years old, and In those days, we had something called drive-in movies. Before your time, whippersnapper. Uh, but and we were going to be going to a drive-in movie that night. My mom sent me out to the garage. There were three of us. I had two brothers. She sent me out to the garage to clean out all our toys and comic books and things from the back seat because we were going to be going to that movie that night. And as I was doing that and picking up the toys and all that, my mind was churning, which it often did. Churning and thinking, well, what if this thing, even at the age of 12 or 11, 12, I think, what if this thing happens and if she says that and I do that and blah, 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 blah. This thing that actually later on I realized is called worry. Okay, and the interesting thing is that when your mind is really caught up in worrying, you don't realize you're worrying because you're so caught up in worrying. You're in it. You don't see it from the outside. So I'm picking up all these toys and comic books, and the next thing I pick up is a Mad magazine. Okay, and Mad magazine, actually, I have a visual here. On the cover of every Mad magazine was a picture of this guy, Alfred E. Newman, their mascot, and his slogan, "What? Me worry?" And I swear to you, all of a sudden, it was like a bolt out of the blue. I'm doing this thing called worrying, and I don't have to. I've been choosing to do this. It's as if I was shown where the lever was, and that not just to press the lever to turn off the worrying, but rather I saw that I had been pressing the lever to turn on the worrying, and that all I had to do was let that go. And it was really as if the top of my head just opened up, and I was no longer a limited thing in time and space. I was just this kind of boundless oceanic being, and it was complete bliss. And all that night, we went to this dumb movie with Troy Donahue, and we came home that night and brushing my teeth, going to bed the whole time, just floating in this bliss. Now, later on, a few years later, I started finding the books, which were harder to find in those days, and finding the books that, this is, these people in India call that samadhi, and these people in Japan call that satori, and, these Christian mystics call this the cloud of unknowing, and you're not the first person to experience it. And most importantly, it doesn't only have to be experienced once in a while by some freak accident. It's available all the time. There are methods that have been road tested. So I had these childhood experiences, and then I started reading the books when I was toward the end of high school. I started reading the Tao Te Ching and the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, which were much harder to find. As I said, now you can, Amazon, but then they were quite rare. This was the mid 60s. And then I had the good fortune to find myself in my freshman year of college in San Francisco, and a whole lot of interesting things were going on there. You had, because of the loosening of the immigration laws, you had an influx of teachers from the East. So you had Suzuki Roshi running the first full-time Zen center. You had Bhaktivedanta Swami coming from India. He started the first Krishna consciousness temple in New York, the second one in a storefront in San Francisco. I went there a lot for the free breakfast and to chant with the Krishna devotees. And there were Sufi teachers and Hasidic mystics, and it was just a wonderful kind of smorgasbord of awakening. So it was just perfect. I was very blessed to sort of stumble into this.
But your journey, has it crossed paths with other? Well, I mean, maybe I should say, what other paths have you crossed in the sense of your journey when it comes to maybe more out there ideas as well?
Mm-hmm. Well, in San Francisco in the 60s, so that placed me there just in time for the Summer of Love in 1967, the whole hippie thing. If if you look at the footage, going down Haight Street, all those hippie freaks, you look for me, I'm there. And so there was really this explosion of interest, and a lot of it came from people experimenting with psychedelics and discovering and having experiences not too far away from what I had stumbled into naturally in my childhood experiences, but finding out, okay, here's it, take this pill and 45 minutes later, you're having something like, at least, something like this Satori experience under the best of circumstances. Now, a lot of the psychedelic experimentation, because it blew up so quickly with very little adult supervision, a lot of it wound up happening under the worst of circumstances, and the rest is history. So yeah, there was that, and there was, then suddenly the books were around. People were reading far out things like the Urantia book and getting into astrology and astral travel, I remember reading a book on astral projection, and okay, let me try to do this, and I did it. I found out, oh yeah, you do this thing and you hear these certain sounds and you kind of point this way and psh, you're out of your body, you're flying around. So all that stuff's real, it's all possible. As my studies got deeper and I found some authentic teachers to hang out with, what they pointed out was they pointed out that, yeah, that stuff's possible, but a lot of it ultimately is a distraction. It's not important. If you project your consciousness out of your body, so that could be useful because you realize, okay, I'm not totally stuck in being this little wave over here, but it just means you locate to somewhere else. Now I'm a wave over there. Okay, what's really important is to find out you're not any wave, you're the ocean.
Would you be happy with the idea that maybe you're a soul having a human experience?
That maybe I'm a soul having a human experience. You can put it that way. I don't usually use the word soul very much because it's a noun. And when people hear that noun, they think of it as a thing. Like in cartoons when Mickey Mouse or Goofy, when someone dies and then you see a little, transparent version of them come out, that people kind of, without thinking about it much, without examining the thought much, I think they usually think of the soul as something like that, some vague, maybe it's like a mass of Play-Doh or something getting ready to be turned into its next shape. And it's not a thing, it's beingness itself. But so I'd be happy with I am the soul. I am the ocean of beingness, which is having a Dean experience now, and having a Kevin experience. The ocean rises as Dean over here and Kevin over there across the pond, and through the miracle of electronic technology, these two waves can wave at each other. Hi.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. And I think the personal exploration of looking at however deep you want to go down the rabbit hole, it always to me seems to lead back to present moment. The deeper you go, the more it just gets back to being here right now. And I think there's a quality in looking at the deeper subjects, but it is important to be present here as well, and to get the most out of this experience.
All we need for this in this journey is right here, right now, and it's a good thing because all there is what's right here, right now. The rest is thinking.
Yeah, it is, and I've always been one that, well, if we could hack the afterlife and just get a few little bits of information that would help us in the present moment now, that would be the only time it comes in helpful. If it makes the present moment more joyful, loving, and just a little bit less from fear as well, right?
Yes.
I'm all for that, but escapism, no.
Fortunately, there's an easier way, because to hack the afterlife, again, see, now you're talking in time, afterlife. You're trying to go. somewhere along the timeline, when we were in school and we made these timelines of history, okay, and, here was the Middle Ages, and here was the Crusades, and here was the Renaissance, and so forth. And funnily enough, time is not a line. That's just a thing you do on a piece of paper with a pencil for school. Time is not a line. Time does not move in a line. Time is more like a pulse, a pulsation right here in the now. Time only happens, I keep coming back to this metaphor because it is very useful. Time only happens on the surface of the ocean, where there's all that wave activity, in all the phenomena. And physicists will tell you the same thing. When you sink below the level of phenomena to the level of the unified field, the ground state, the non-wave, non-phenomenal level, there is no time, there is no space. And we can do that right here and right now just by essentially taking it easy and allowing gravity to pull us in. And then what we experience is that which is beyond time and space. We experience, one of the great joys in my life is when I teach a room full of new people. I guide a room full of new people in meditation, and we open our eyes, and I say, "How you doing?" And I see a lot of smiles. I say, "Any questions?" And the hands go up, and people, the first thing they ask is, "How long was that?" And the reason they're puzzled, and I never answer it by the clock because that'll be misleading. If I say 5 minutes or 20 minutes, that'll be the wrong answer, because the reason they're asking, "Geez, how long was that? I have no idea," is because they all sank at least a little bit or a lot below the surface into that silent, non-phenomenal beingness, and there is no time there. It's timeless. Now, the more you marinate in that timelessness, which is also spaceless. So you come out, you're kind of surprised. Gee, am I back in this room? Am I back in this body? That's funny. The more you marinate in that, the more you realize that is what you are. That is what you are. And then the rest of it is up here having, as you say, having this Dean experience. And so you don't worry about death. Your fear of death goes away because you know that cannot die, because that is never born.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for that. And just so we have your website as well, it is?
deanwords.com. deanwords.com. And I want to point out, by the way, that on the site I've got audio tracks that anyone can access where I lead people in this kind of natural meditation. I also have a YouTube channel. We have every other Tuesday night I lead a group here, and we're live streaming them and archiving them on YouTube.
Wonderful.
And you can get to that through my website, deanwords.com.
Well, what we'll do as well, we'll link that in the description of this video, and we've just wanted to mention verbally your website because it's coming up on the screen, but for the podcast as well. So,
right.
And we'll link the book up as well, your latest book. So, what does a life look like that's living beyond fear, anxiety, anger, and addiction? Are we transcending then? Are we leaving planet Earth?
No, we're enjoying planet Earth. We're finding out that as your fears and anxieties and your angers and your addictions ease up, and for some people, sometimes there's dramatic moments along the path where, years ago, I used to smoke cigarettes, and one day I was in the middle of smoking a cigarette. This was years ago in my adolescence. I was 17. And I said, why am I doing? Actually, what I said was at the time, because this was in the hippie era, I said, wait a minute, these things don't get me high. And I put it out, and that was it. I was done. So sometimes as people wake up into this just blissful beingness, which is your true identity, there are dramatic moments where suddenly, okay, I don't have to take this substance anymore. So much more often, it's more kind of gradual. You just find yourself, sometimes other people see it before you do because you're right in the middle of it. At the beginning of my meditation career, I started going on weekend retreats. And after the fourth or fifth one, my girlfriend said to me, you know, every time you come back from one of these retreats, you're a little bit nicer. I said, I am? Okay, I'll take that. So this is the way it happens. Just the stuff falls away, and the you're fine. Whatever's going on, you're pretty much fine because you're marinating. This is one of the reasons I love working with prisoners. I've been working with prisoners in maximum security since 2005, and you know, this is where the stuff really gets tested. These are people who have no control over their environment. They live in a dangerous environment. They come from usually horrible backgrounds, all kinds of horrible childhood trauma and abuse. And boy, if it can work there, it can work anywhere, and it works there.
Yeah, and some of them haven't, I suppose. Some of them have come from nice homes and, you know, have maybe they were born a narcissist. You know, maybe they've got,
Yeah,
you know,
and but so there's somehow, if we go back far enough, there's some causes and conditions that shape them the way they are.
I'm sure
But
there
the
is.
point is, no matter when it happened or how it happened or where it happened, we don't have to be trapped by it. You asked me a while ago, what's the main message? And we could put it that way. Whatever the stuff is that you feel caught in, it's not a terminal condition. You don't have to be caught in it. You can be liberated from it.
You can, but you've got to want to. And if you're not going to take responsibility for your actions, or you're, you know, in denial for whatever reason,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I suppose,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
mental
I mean,
health.
this is why in the Buddha's first Four Noble Truths, the first noble truth is the truth of suffering. It is, hey, you're suffering. Hey, Buster, pay attention. You're suffering. And you know, I mean, that's being a grown-up, acknowledging that those problematic areas are there, acknowledging that, okay, there's something that needs to be dealt with. That's the first step. And then, as you say, you have to be willing to not just, you know, some people, they just read a lot of spiritual books and so forth. They never do any real practice. That's like reading the label on the bottle of medicine. You have to unscrew the top and drink it. You have to sit down and do it. Fortunately, you don't have to do a lot. And so many people get scared off of meditation because it's so often taught as, oh, you have to concentrate, and I can't. I mean, fortunately, I started off trying to do this very rigorous Zen practice where you have to sit absolutely still like a rock and hold your mind still, and you know, and if you waver, they come and they whack you across the back of the shoulders with a stick. And I realized, right, I'm too fidgety for this. My mind, I can't concentrate, I can't control my thoughts. In other words, I was normal, I was like most people. So that forced me to find teachers who were plugged into real, authentic, time-tested traditions that say, no, you don't try to control the mind. You don't try to push away the thoughts. That's like trying to flatten out all the waves on the ocean. You don't have to do that if you know how to just allow gravity to pull you into the silent water.
Okay, so someone that's let's just go for fear right now. Let's go from the anger
Yeah.
side, because I think anger is quite a common fear, isn't it? Um, Someone that's, you know, in their life is coming from a lot of anger at the slightest thing sometimes. How can they transform that suffering?
Yeah. Well, there's a number of things. One thing that I find is very effective with people, and I have a chapter about this in the book. The chapter is titled "Drop Your Thoughts," because, you know, thoughts are the power of thinking. It's this miraculous power. It allows us to go project outside of here and now and do things like, you know, build rockets to the moon and write symphonies and plan schools and do that. But we need it. But that tool, when it's misused, which it very, 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 very often is, we use it to hang on to all kinds of stories of our injuries from the past and all the things that bad things we anticipate happening in the future. So The exercise, drop your thoughts, is this. You clap your hands in front of your eyes just to kind of shock yourself a little bit, and drop your thoughts. Drop your thoughts for 5 seconds. Okay? Not try to analyze the thoughts, not try to figure out, okay, this one's a healthy thought, this is the past, this is the future, this is real, this is on. That all has its place. But this exercise is drop it all, just like whatever, taking anything. You know, I take my wristwatch. All you have to do is relax your grip. Okay. Now, people often, they hear this, and the next thing they say is, well, I'm trying to drop my thoughts, but they won't go away. They don't have to go away. All you have to do, see, like if I relax my grip on the wristwatch, it may fall away like this, and it's by itself, or it may remain there, but as long as I'm not gripping it, as long as I've loosened up that tightness, I'm not caught up in it. So drop your thoughts for 5 seconds. After the 6th second, pick them up again and go about your merry way. Do this several times a day, and then what happens is you start to recognize that thoughts are just thoughts, and that a thought cannot have power over you. A thought can only appear to have that kind of power when you're gripping it.
Okay. And you practice that yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's one. Breathing through your feet is great for all of this, for anger, for fear, for addiction. You know, when okay, your friend comes up and you're whatever, you write the Buddha's first noble truth, acknowledging your suffering, acknowledging that, say, you're an alcoholic. And then your friend comes along, oh, come on, mate, just, one beer, it'll be fine. You need some tools at that moment. One thing that I recommend for people who have that is, don't say to your friend necessarily, no, that's it, I've quit, I'm never going to drink again, because then you're putting yourself in conflict, and you go, oh my God, to never have a drink again. What you say to your friend is, not now. Thank you very much, not now. Just put it off. Keep putting it off. Every time you put it off, now that is losing its power over you, and you're finding out that its grip is not absolute. Another one. The title of this chapter is "Relax at the Moment of Contact," and this one I learned. I used to practice a martial art called Aikido. It's a very beautiful, graceful, dance-like martial art where it's non-fighting. When the person rushes in to attack you, and you use his energy, and you turn very gracefully, and you use his energy to send him, sailing across the room or rolling across the mat. I was in the dojo, I was practicing for my next promotion test, and I had to practice this thing with multiple attackers. One after another, 3 guys would rush me and try to tackle me. And every time they would do that, I would freeze up with the first guy, and I did not succeed in throwing him. Then the other 2 guys would come in and knock me down, and it was just a disaster. So I'm in the middle of doing this. The guy's about to rush me again, and suddenly I hear a voice, and it's my teacher. Stickle Sensei, my Aikido instructor. He was on the stairwell halfway up to the men's dressing room, and he shouts out to me, "Dean, relax at the moment of contact." So now the next guy rushed in, and then I realized that, I'd been freezing up. My shoulders had been coming up. So instead I relaxed, breathed out, dropped my shoulders, dropped the energy into my hips, and then turned and threw him across the room. Then the next guy rushed in. I started to freeze up again. Again, the sensei shut, relax at the moment of contact. Okay. So we bring this into life. Here the moment of contact, the things that are rushing in at you are your crazy neighbor giving you a hard time about how you're setting out your trash cans, or your whatever, the rage, the beer being offered to you when you know you shouldn't have it, whatever it is, just at that moment, which is the moment when you've been habituated to tense up, do exactly the opposite. That's the moment to relax. And then in that more relaxed state, you realize you have options, you have choices.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. And I mean, I think a lot of people's pain as well, well, not everyone's, but is, you know, not living in the moment, you know, fearing about the potential, you know, my money's about to run out, or, you know, what, you know, will this job promotion work? You know, is this relationship right? But whatever, it's sort of
Right.
fearful projections into the future, or maybe the past coming up as well, and that can be
Right.
another source. I mean, how have you
Right.
found yourself handling those kind of situations?
What? Me worry?
I love it.
Fortunately, that was the beginning of my path right there. Uh, yeah, and again, it's a lot of it, it's recognizing that thoughts are just thoughts. And the more you do that exercise, I just said, dropping the thoughts, you realize, oh, they are just thoughts. You know, when you're engrossed in the thoughts, you're all you have is the content of the thoughts. You forget that they are thoughts. It's sort of like reading a book. You know, when you're reading a really good novel, you get so engrossed in the story that you forget, you no longer notice the weight of the book in your hands and the march of the little black squiggles across the white page, right? And that's great when you're reading a novel. But in the case of thoughts, we get so entranced by the content of the thoughts that it's as if that thing is really happening. You know, why else when you're reading a great novel would your heart pound when the hero is in danger? Would you cry when the heroine's, you know, lover leaves her or whatever it is? Because we're engrossed, we forget that it's a book. In the same way, we forget that the thoughts are just thoughts. Now, another part of it is physiology. That the worried state, the anxious state, and for that matter, the angry state that makes us susceptible to the power of those thoughts, is supported by the activity of the sympathetic nervous system, the one that when it's on full alert, that's when we have the so-called fight or flight response, and then everything is perceived as a danger that we need to oppose or run away from. You know, and that, again, that's a necessary thing. When we were cave people, when you heard the roaring sound, it meant there's the woolly mammoth. You need to either, you know, wield your spear and bring this thing down bring it home for lunch, or you need to get the heck out of there. Now these days we're in, you know, we're on the sidewalk in traffic, and you hear the roar, and it's not a mammoth, it's a truck or a lorry, as you say. But our nervous system still responds as if it's the mammoth. So our sympathetic nervous system is getting artificially, through especially urban life, you know, where it's getting, that lever is getting pressed dozens and dozens of times a day. Now, when we do any kind of meditation, anything in the direction of meditation, whether it's meditation, some breathing techniques that I have in the book we haven't talked about yet, when you do anything that's in the meditative direction, it cools out the sympathetic nervous system and activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which does just the opposite. It cools down our engine. It cools everything down. And then, you know, and I'm sure you've seen people who, even though the things they're talking about, the things they're worried about are illogical, they're not going to happen, you can point that out to them logically, but it's as if physiologically they can't hear you. They're too agitated. And that is because they're in the clutch of the sympathetic nervous system. They need something to cool that down and bring up the parasympathetic. Now, as I say, one of the ways we can do that is through breathing techniques, so-called, you may be familiar with Ujjayi breath. A lot of people learn that in yoga class. I call it Darth Vader breath. You know, what you're doing there is constricting the back of your throat to make that rasping sound. That narrows the throat, it slows down the breath, which is good, but also that stimulates the vagus nerve, which in turn switches off the sympathetic and switches on the parasympathetic nervous system. So you're sitting there at the red light, you know, boiling over with worry because you're going to be late for work or whatever. Hey, you're at the red light anyway. You can sit there trying to will the red light to turn green faster, which you may have noticed doesn't work, just increases your frustration. or sit back, do a few ujjayi breaths.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, so I mean that's what your book does. It's sort of showing simple meditative techniques, and as it says on your book, tweaks of the body and mind to sort of deeply relax and draw. You also draw on ancient enlightenment techniques as well. I think in teachings in your book, which is years of work that you've studied as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I've studied with teachers in the Tibetan traditions, teachers in the Indian traditions, and they've all gone deeply into these questions of life and death. Of course, death is the big fear, and often the big unacknowledged fear because it's so feared for many people. And I have this story there that a lot of people have found very helpful about my late first wife when she went through her experience with cancer, and I, by her side as she was going through her cancer and her experience of dying. And part of the story, she was a week or two away from dying in the hospital, and someone called up very excited, said, "Oh, I've been making arrangements, and I can get this group of Tibetan monks to come to your hospital room and do this special chanting for you," and so forth. And my wife also had been a very deep practitioner of meditation, and had really been kind of the right-hand woman for a couple of lamas in their teachings in the U.S. And she said, "Oh, thanks so much for doing that, but no, thank you. That wouldn't be authentic for me. That hasn't been part of my practice during my life." She said, "My practice is just being without hope or fear." Well, that was a teaching. Just being without hope or fear. That's the advanced teaching. A lot of people won't want to hear this, and fine, if you're not ready, because everyone wants to be without fear. But be without hope? But if we look deeply into it, again, if you're ready to hear this, if you're not, just cover your ears for the next 30 seconds. Hope is really the flip side of fear, right? Because they're both an investment in a certain outcome. In either case, I'm betting my happiness on a certain outcome, right? If I fear that I will not win the lottery, I hope that I will win the lottery. Okay, either way, we're again projecting into a future that has nothing to do with here and now. But just being, hope and fear, we could say they're there on the surface. They're there in the waves. They're there outcomes in time. Just being is sinking into the ocean. No matter what's going on, it's always available.
Is that almost like, walking a path that you want to walk, with your best purpose for March, we're trying to strive in what you feel is the right thing for you to do at that moment, right? Whatever it is you're doing in your career, but it's not having an addiction to the outcome.
Yeah. We get up in the morning, we look around, we're going to do some things. Few of them are easy. I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to brush my teeth. Then for me, the next thing I do is I stretch a little and then I meditate. And then, okay, there's some things you have to do. You take care of your business, and maybe some things you want to do. I want to do some singing, play my ukulele for a little while. Great. And you try your best to not harm others, and if possible to help others. And then you go to bed. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. And we can't compare ourselves to no one else as well. That's their path is their path. Our path is what we're doing right now.
Right. And it's not one size fits all. And that's why in the book, I try to supply a pretty big toolbox. Some people, I was talking to a guy the other day he's a financial guy, an investment manager in Connecticut. And he read the book, and the thing that he picked up on was relax at the moment of impact, the moment of contact, relax at the moment of contact, because, every day when his clients are coming to him with, well, what about this? Gee, Tesla's stock has dropped, and what about this? And that's the moment when he tends to tighten up, and he knows to just, if that's the only thing he gets, just that, if you get one tool that really works for you, then that's great.
Absolutely, and we're just at the end of this interview almost now, and I just want to say, so no matter what you're suffering from, and not just running it, whether it's you're afraid of dating, flying, or angry at your boss, or addicted to drinking, drugs, or anxious about financial insecurities or political insanity, in a sense, you state here there is a clear, open, problem-free space that's always within you. Anyone can access it, thereby dissolving the roots of fear, anxiety, anger, and addiction. I just wanted to get that in there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for that. What would you say, just before you go, because I know we're over time here, and thank you for that, what would you say is the most important message of your work?
It's easier than you think. It takes a little know-how. With a little bit of guidance, you go, oh, it's so easy, it's so natural. Why haven't I been doing this all along?
Well, Dean, I just want to say thank you so much for the time that you've given us right now. I will try to direct people to your website, because I think there's links on there for your book as well. I'll put the links in the description of this video. And yes, thank you for joining us.
Good. Thank you, Kevin. Really, it's been a pleasure.